Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope by now most of you are aware of the tragic and controversial case involving organ harvesting of a minor, reportedly under 18 years old, tried to complete biological death. This case, which emerged from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, raises fundamental questions about how we define death, what Islamic laws says about it, and whether organ retrieval in such a state is morally and legally acceptable. So I felt compelled to make this video not just as an Islamic scholar or Islamic learner, but as someone who's been actively involved in the Sharia compliance of the medical field for nearly 5 years, working with various physicians and medical institutions. My name is Muhammad Faiq and I'm specialized in Islamic jurisprudence. In this video, my target audience includes doctors, physicians, MBBS students, and Islamic bioethicists, including researchers. But even if you are a layperson, I invite you to listen because death and its definition and its implications affects us all. Before jumping into the KPK case in which Dr. Izhar said reportedly harvested organs based on the two brain death declaration 6 hours apart rule, we need to understand a foundational principle of Islam for the purpose of doing a virtue or a good deed. So all our actions, including medical procedures, must fall under ethical framework of Sharia to be called as virtue. Whether you are a donor or a physician, the ultimate intention must be seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and abiding the laws of Sharia, and not just celebrating a medical breakthrough or following a clinical trend. According to the Transplantation of Human Organ and Tissue Act 2010 Pakistan, we find two relevant definitions. First one is the brain death, and the second one is the death itself. So brain death refers to the irreversible cessation of all functions of the brains and brain stem, and death legally defined as the irreversible cessation of the entire brain stem's function, which is responsible for controlling basic life functions such as breathing and heart rate. These terms may sound similar, but they carry critical implications both clinically and ethically, and of course Islamically as well. So let's break it down further. There are three closely related yet distinct principles and concepts which we all need to understand and revise in this video. First one is the brain death, which is a neurologically diagnosed state where the brain has ceased to function, yet the patient may still be breathing with a beating heart, often sustained by a ventilator. Second one is the brain stem cessation. Here, the brain stem, which is the life regulating center, has stopped functioning, yet the heart may still be perfusing due to the residual circulatory drive. And the third is the cessation of all brain stem functions as per the Act. This is when the entire brain stem is irreversibly non-functional and there is no breathing and no heartbeat, which is sensed and it's all shut down, which is considered as biological death. Even in the field of medicine, the definition of death is disputed. Some define death as irreversible loss of brain function. Others consider death to occur only when cardiorespiratory functions ceases, which means that there is a different aspect to see death from the scientific perspective. From an Islamic perspective, the ruh concept comes into play, and the defining marker is the departure of the ruh from the Islamic perspective when we call someone as deceased. But has Islam described the exact mechanism of the soul? No. The Quran explicitly says, they ask you about the soul. Say, the soul is from the command of my Lord, and you have been given of knowledge only a little. This is the verse in Surah Al-Isra, verse 85. So Islam remains silent on how the soul departs and leaves the body, and the practical recognition of death is left to the custom of the people, which is called as urf. So people were dying since centuries, thousands of years. But why the death definition comes after 1980s or in the early 1980s? So for centuries, people across cultures have recognized death when breathing stops, or the heart stops beating, or the body becomes cold and lifeless. It's not when the science has evolved, people started to die. People were dying from thousands of years. So this urf, which is translated as the prevailing practice or the custom, is recognized in usul al-fiqh as hujja shar'iyya, which means a valid legal consideration if there are no other reasons possible and available, unless it is not contradicted by clear Quranic or Sunnah-based injunctions. Yet, Islam never opposes science, and I myself is involved working in the medical field, so do not make it as ambiguous in this regard. But it discourages ambiguity, especially in daily life matters that concerns everyone from rural villages to urban ICUs. Here is why isn't just semantics. Several critical rulings in Islam depends on confirming death. So you know about it, the concept called tajheez and takfeen, which is the final bathing of the body. Takfeen is the shrouding of the body, and tadfeen, which is engraving a person or burial of a person. And then comes the wasiyah, which is the execution of the will, and mirath, the inheritance and the distribution of the wealth of deceased. And then there is another concept called idda, which is the waiting period for the widow after the demise of the husband or spouse. Now imagine, what if someone pronounced dead based on EEG, which is brainwave cessation mark, but is still breathing and his heart is still pumping? Would you give him the ghusl while he is breathing and his heart is beating, and you bury him while he is still breathing? And the start of the idda of the widow would be considered, and the mark would be taken from the brain death or the brain stem cessation while he's breathing, or the person who is completely biologically shut down. So this is the chaos we invite when we shift from ECG, electrocardiogram, which is the proof of the heart cessation, to EEG, which is electroencephalogram, which indicates brain cessation and its functions, as the sole standard of death. Now let's return to the tragic case of Jawad, who was 14, 15 years old boy, declared brain dead using the two declarations 6 hours apart protocol. After this declaration, his family gave consent for organ retrievals and procurement. And in this video, of course, I won't go into the broader permissibility of organ donation and its definitions, which has its own fiqh rulings and guidelines. However, I just wanted to summarize it for you. If a person's life is truly over, and which means that he's dead biologically, and he has given consent to take his organs, Of course, we will talk about it, how this consent works or not. And the donation not commercialized, which means the donor or the legal heirs cannot take any financial gains from it. And there is necessity, which means the zarura is there for the patient, not for any financial gains. Then scholars do allow the organ donations as concession, which is rukhsa, and not as a medical norm, of course. So the core question, did Jawad die biologically before his organs were harvested? That's the real issue, of course. If Jawad was still breathing and his heart was still pumping and his organs were harvested in a way that he had gone through bilateral nephrectomy, which is the removal of the both kidneys, or removal of the heart while his heart is still perfusing blood, or any vital organ that causes death, then the act of organ retrieval itself, if caused death, that is not organ donation. That is iatrogenic death, or in plain terms, or naive terms, which is killing of a person before he died biologically by himself. Yes, I understand the use of life support systems, epinephrine infusions, and the mechanical ventilators, but these are the supportive aids, not a replacement for the soul or signs of irreversible death. Therefore, based on the above analysis, it is Islamically impermissible to harvest organs from the patient declared brain dead or declared brain stem cessation unless there is a complete biological death, no heartbeat, no breathing, no response, even with the support. Wallahu ta'ala a'lamu bis-sawab. This is Muhammad Faiq signing off. If you have any questions, disagreements, insights, feel free to comment below. Let's continue this important conversation with knowledge, respect, and ethical clarity. You can also send me a personal message on the LinkedIn, which I will share the link below, inshallah. Please share this video with the doctors and the medical students if you find it beneficial. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.